Dylan sat at his desk in his small, but cozy apartment staring at the glowing screen of his laptop. It was another quiet evening, after a long day of work in the tech company, where he spent most of his time. The city outside was bustling with the noise of hover cars and neon lights, but inside his apartment, Dylan enjoyed the calm. He always liked these evenings where he could relax and unwind, but that evening something unexpected happened as he clicked through his emails. One subject line caught his eye: a date with Destiny. He raised an eyebrow and opened the message. It was short, simple, and intriguing. Hi, Dylan, I'm Zora. I'd like to invite you to dinner tonight. Please meet me at the Eclipse 7 p.m. It's a place where the stars align, and I promise you won't regret it. See you soon, Zara. Dylan frowned for a moment, confused. He didn't recognize the name Zara, and he certainly didn't remember giving anyone his email address for something like this. It was a little strange, but in a city like this stranger things had happened. Maybe she was a friend of a friend, or it was some sort of prank. His curiosity won out. Dylan had nothing better to do, and he figured it would be an interesting evening. He quickly glanced at the time. It was already 6 p.m. He had an hour. He changed into a smart casual outfit and headed out the door. The Eclipse was an exclusive restaurant known for its cutting-edge technology, breathtaking views of the city skyline, and unusual menu offerings. It was the kind of place that people went to impress others. Dylan couldn't help but wonder what kind of person would invite him to such a fancy spot. When he arrived, the restaurant was even more impressive than he expected. The entire place was built to resemble the inside of a spaceship, with floating tables and holographic projections of distant stars decorating the walls. The ambience was futuristic and the lighting was dim but inviting. Dylan felt a little out of place, but he quickly found Zara sitting at a table near the large window overlooking the city. She was stunning. Zara's dark hair cascaded down her back in gentle waves, and her emerald green eyes gleamed with a sense of mystery. She wore a simple but elegant dress that shimmered under the soft light. She stood up as soon as she saw him and smiled warmly. You made it, she said in a voice that seemed both soft and confident at the same time. I'm so glad you could join me. Dylan felt a bit awkward, but smiled back. Yeah, this place is amazing. I've never been here before. I thought you might like it, Zara replied, her gaze lingering on him for a moment. There was something about her eyes, something different, that made Dylan feel like he was staring into the depths of the universe. She motioned for him to sit. As they settled into their seats, a holographic waiter appeared to take their orders. Zara ordered something with a name Dylan couldn't even pronounce, and he settled for a safe choice, a steak dinner, simple but reliable. So Zara, Dylan began trying to make small talk. How did you find me? She smiled, her eyes twinkling. Let's just say I have a way of finding the right people. Dylan didn't know what that meant, but he was more curious than ever. There was something about her, an air of confidence and a subtle mystery that made her seem otherworldly, as if she didn't quite belong to Earth. As the meal arrived, the conversation turned to more personal topics. Zara spoke about her travels, her love for new experiences, and her passion for discovering other cultures. Dylan listened, intrigued by her stories, but also feeling a growing sense of unease. It was clear she was not your average woman. So what is it that you do? Dylan asked, unable to hold back the question any longer. Zora paused for a moment, as if considering how much to reveal. I'm part of something much bigger than what you can see here, she finally said with a cryptic smile, but for now let's just enjoy the night. It's not every day that I get to meet someone like you. Dylan didn't know what to make of that, but something about her words lingered in his mind before he could ask more. Zara slid a thin metallic card across the table. I have something for you, she said, her tone serious now. The card was smooth and cold to the touch. Dylan picked it up and turned it over. At first it looked like some sort of fancy business card, but there was something off about it. The numbers and symbols on the card made no sense to him. What's this? He asked, raising an eyebrow. It's A contract, Zara said softly, a formality. You'll understand soon. Dylan blinked. A contract. For what? Zara smiled, but this time her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. It's for us and much more than that. Diamonds. Fingers tightened around the cold metallic card that Zara had just given him. The smooth surface felt alien in his hand, almost as if it wasn't meant for human touch. He stared at the strange symbols and numbers on it, trying to make sense of it, but they only made his confusion grow. He looked up at Zara, her eyes sparkling with a mix of mystery and seriousness that made his heart beat a little faster. A contract, Dylan repeated, his voice barely above a whisper. For what exactly? Zara leaned back in her chair, her gaze never leaving him. The restaurant's soft music seemed to fade into the background as a heavy silence hung between them. Dylan's mind raced with thoughts. Was this some kind of joke? Maybe she was a spy or involved in some weird undercover operation, or perhaps it was a prank and he had somehow been pulled into a game he didn't understand. She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she picked up her glass of sparkling drink and took a slow sip, her eyes studying him intently as though evaluating something deeper than just his outward appearance. Dylan shifted uncomfortably in his seat, feeling like a pawn on some unseen chessboard. Why don't you read it? Zara finally said, her tone soft but firm. She didn't seem like someone who would joke about something like this. Dylan hesitated for a moment before he turned the card over in his hands. The more he looked at it, the stranger it seemed. The symbols didn't resemble anything from Earth, no alphabet or language he recognized. It was alien. His stomach tightened. I don't understand any of this, Dylan said, his voice a little shaky. What are you trying to tell me? Zora's smile never wavered. She leaned forward, her eyes glowing with a mixture of intensity and something that almost seemed like affection. It made Dylan's skin prickle uncomfortably. He wasn't sure if it was just the weirdness of the situation or something else entirely, but there was something unsettling about the way she was looking at him. This isn't about anything simple, Dylan, she began, her voice low and steady. I didn't bring you here for a normal date. You're not just another person on Earth. You're part of something much bigger. Dylan blinked. I'm sorry, I don't think I follow. Zora's eyes softened slightly as she took a deep breath. Let me explain. I'm from a planet called Drera. My people are struggling. We've been searching for a solution to a crisis that's threatening our survival. She paused, studying his face to gauge his reaction. Dylan didn't know what to say. He had heard about alien species and distant planets in movies and books, but it was all fiction, wasn't it? Yet here she was sitting across from him, telling him she was from another world. Survival. What do you mean? He asked, trying to make sense of it all. His mind was struggling to catch up to the bizarre reality of the situation. Zora's gaze turned serious. Our population has dwindled to the point of near extinction. We are genetically incompatible with most other species. That's where you come in, Dylan. You're a genetic match for our race, and I was sent to find you. Dylan's stomach dropped. He stared at her, blinking as he processed her words. Wait. Are you saying that you need me for what exactly? Zora leaned in closer, her voice dropping to a near whisper. We need your DNA, Dylan. The Dracarians, my people, can only survive if we find compatible humans. You're the key to saving my species. The words hit Dylan like a punch to the gut. He leaned back in his chair, trying to make sense of it all. Hold on. Wait a second, he stammered. Are you saying I'm supposed to help save your people? By what? Giving you my DNA? Zara nodded, her expression soft but unyielding. Yes, that's why you signed the contract. Dylan's eyes widened. I didn't sign anything, he protested. I didn't even know this was happening until you handed me this thing. His voice was rising now, disbelief and confusion mixing with the adrenaline starting to pump through his veins. He didn't know what kind of game Zura was playing, but he didn't like it. She reached across the table, gently touching his hand, her fingers cold but firm. You did, Dylan. You signed it when you agreed to come here to meet me, to be part of this. Dylan pulled his hand away, his mind racing. This was insane. There was no way this was real. but as much as he wanted to deny it, a small uneasy part of him realized that this could be true. The card in his pocket, the strange feeling of the night, the unsettling look in Zora's eyes, it was all adding up to something he wasn't prepared for. What happens now? He asked, his voice barely a whisper. He wasn't sure if he wanted to know the answer. Zora's expression softened. Now we begin the process, but don't worry, Dylan. Dylan sat frozen in his chair. The words Zora had just spoken echoing in his head. His mind couldn't keep up with the flood of information. A contract, DNA, an alien race called the Dracarians. He had to be dreaming, or this was some elaborate joke. But Zara's face was serious, and the cold metal card in his hand felt very real. He couldn't shake the feeling that something far bigger than he understood was happening. Zara didn't give him much time to process. She sat back in her chair, folding her hands in front of her, her gaze never leaving his. Her eyes held an intensity that made Dylan uncomfortable, as though she could see straight through him. Listen, Dylan, she said, her voice calm but filled with urgency. I know this is a lot to take in, but you need to understand something. My people, the Dracarians, are on the verge of extinction. We've been searching for a solution for centuries. We found it in you. Dylan swallowed hard, trying to speak, but his mouth felt dry. But why me? I'm just a normal guy. Zora's lips curved into a sad smile. You're much more than that. You're compatible with us. Your genetic makeup is unlike any other human. You can help us rebuild our race. The word hung in the air like a weight, and Dylan had to fight the urge to laugh. He felt like he was caught in some kind of sci-fi movie, but Zara wasn't smiling. She wasn't joking, and the more he looked at her, the more he began to realize that she truly believed what she was saying. You really expect me to believe this? Dylan finally managed to say, his voice filled with disbelief. You're telling me I'm supposed to help you save your entire species by giving you my DNA, just like that? Zara nodded slowly. Yes, that's exactly it. You were chosen because your genes are a match. The Dracarians can't reproduce with most other species we've tried, but you, Dylan, you are different. Your DNA has the key to our future. Dylan's head spun. The idea of being part of something so monumental, so far beyond his understanding, made him feel small, insignificant. Even he was a guy who worked a boring tech job, lived in a modest apartment, and spent his evenings in front of his computer. He wasn't some hero, some savior of an alien species. Why didn't you just tell me this earlier? Dylan asked, trying to make sense of it all. Why all the mystery? Why a date? Why not just explain everything from the beginning? Zora's eyes softened, and she leaned forward slightly. I couldn't just tell you, Dylan. You had to want to help. You had to make the choice yourself. That's why I invited you here. I knew that if I gave you time to understand, you'd see why this is so important. Dylan ran his fingers through his hair, still trying to process the overwhelming information. This isn't real. It can't be. Zora's voice became more urgent. Dylan, this is real. You've already signed the contract, whether you realize it or not. Your agreement to meet with me, to be part of this, that's what binds you. The moment you stepped into this restaurant, you chose to help us. The words hit Dylan like a punch. He remembered when he had first arrived at the Eclipse, how Zara had handed him the card and said it was just a formality, but he hadn't taken it seriously. He thought it was part of the charm, part of some elaborate game she was playing. He never imagined it would lead to this. You're telling me I don't have a choice now? Dylan asked, his voice rising with frustration. That's not how this works, Zora. I can't just be forced into something like this. Zara shook her head slowly. It's not about forcing you, Dylan. It's about survival. You can choose to walk away, but the truth is our species is dying. Without your help, the Dracarians will cease to exist, and you might be the last chance we have. Dylan's heart pounded in his chest as he tried to wrap his mind around what she was saying. He could see the desperation in her eyes, the urgency in her tone. She wasn't just asking for help, she was pleading for it. You're asking me to save an entire race of people, but I don't even know you, Dylan exclaimed. I don't know anything about your world, about who you are. How can you expect me to just go along with this? Zara's expression softened, and for the first time Dylan saw a flicker of something other than determination in her eyes. Vulnerability. I understand, Dylan, I know. It's a lot to ask, but please try to see beyond yourself. This isn't just about you and me, it's about the future of my people. Dylan sat in stunned silence, the weight of Zora's words pressing down on him like a heavy stone. His mind was in turmoil, racing through a million questions, trying to make sense of what had just been revealed to him. He never imagined his life would take such a drastic turn. One moment, he was an ordinary guy sitting in his apartment, and the next he was sitting across from an alien woman who claimed he held the key to saving her species. Zora's gaze remained steady, watching him closely. She didn't rush him, understanding that this was too much for anyone to process. All at once the silence between them stretched on, and Dylan could feel the tension thickening the air. She had given him a choice, but it wasn't just a simple decision. It was a decision that could change everything, not just for him, but for an entire race of beings. He ran his hand through his hair, his mind still spinning. So what exactly do you need from me? Just my DNA. Zora nodded slowly. That's the first step, but there's more to it than that. The process will take time. It's not just about exchanging genetic material, it's about creating a bond, a deeper connection between you and the Dracarians. A bond? Dylan asked, his brow furrowing. What kind of bond? Zora's eyes darkened slightly. The kind of bond that allows us to reproduce with humans. It's not just about having children, it's about ensuring the survival of our species. Without this connection we can't create viable offspring. It's the only way forward for us. Dylan's heart raced as he tried to comprehend what she was saying. The thought of bonding with an alien species, of being part of something so far beyond his understanding, was overwhelming. He wasn't sure if he could handle it, but as he looked into Zora's eyes he saw the desperation, the urgency. She wasn't asking for a favor, she was pleading for his help. Why me? He asked quietly. Why didn't you go to someone else, someone who knows about all of this, someone who might be more prepared for it? Zara sighed deeply. I wish there were another way. But your genetic makeup is unique. You're the only one who matches with us, and I couldn't just tell anyone. You had to be the one to choose this for yourself. Dylan leaned back in his chair, his mind racing. This was more than just a simple choice. He wasn't just deciding whether or not to help an alien race. He was deciding whether or not he was willing to change his entire life, his identity, his future, for the survival of beings he didn't even know. I don't know if I can do this, he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. This is so far beyond anything I've ever imagined. I'm just one guy. I don't know what to do. I don't even know if I can trust you. Zara's expression softened, and she reached out across the table, her hand gently touching his. The contact was cold but not unpleasant. I understand your fear, Dylan, but I wouldn't be here if it weren't for the fact that you're our last hope. Without you the Dracarians will die, and if you don't help us the world you know could eventually suffer as well. Our extinction could lead to chaos, and other forces might take advantage of our weakened state. Dylan's mind spun as he tried to process her words, the idea of the Dracarians dying, of their extinction causing instability on Earth. It was a terrifying thought, but what could he possibly do? He was just one person. He wasn't a scientist. He wasn't a hero. He was an ordinary guy who worked at a tech company and had no experience with anything this life-changing. I don't know if I can handle something like this, Dylan said, his voice shaky. I mean, I've never even been in a serious relationship. I don't know what it means to create a bond with someone, let alone someone from another planet. Zara's gaze softened even more. It's not just about physical connection, it's about trust, understanding, and knowing that this is something that must happen for both of us. You're not alone in this, Dylan. I'm here, and I will guide you through every step of the process. Dylan sat silently, his thoughts swirling. It felt like his entire world was about to be turned upside down, and yet he couldn't deny the pull he felt towards Zora, there was something about her, something more than just her beauty. It was her confidence, her strength, the way she held herself, as though she was carrying the weight of an entire species on her shoulders. The decision had been made. Dylan sat across from Zara, his heart still racing, his mind filled with uncertainty. The weight of his choice pressed down on him with each passing second. This was no longer some strange conversation or a weird date, it was real. He had agreed to help the Darans, and now there was no turning back. Zora's eyes softened as she saw the hesitation in his expression. She reached across the table and gently touched his hand. A simple gesture made Dylan feel more grounded, but the anxiety in his chest didn't subside. He had just agreed to something unimaginable, something that would change his life forever. Are you sure about this, Dylan? Zara asked quietly, her voice filled with genuine concern. I know this is overwhelming, but once we begin, there's no going back. Dylan nodded slowly, trying to steady his nerves. I don't know if I'm sure about anything right now, but I can't just walk away from this, not after everything you've told me. If I don't help your people, everything could be gone. Zora smiled faintly, her expression one of gratitude. Thank you. You don't know how much this means to me, to my people, but it's going to be difficult. This isn't something you can do lightly. Dylan felt a chill run through him. What do I need to do? He asked, bracing himself for whatever was next. Zara's gaze became more serious. We'll begin the process tomorrow, but first we need to prepare. You'll need to undergo a few tests, and we need to make sure your body is ready for the procedure. Dylan looked at her, trying to keep the fear out of his voice. What kind of tests? Zara leaned back, her expression thoughtful. We need to confirm that your genetics are truly compatible with ours. There may be some adjustments to be made before we begin the process of bonding. Dylan swallowed hard. He wasn't sure what she meant by adjustments, but it sounded serious. And after the tests, what happens then? The next step is the bonding process, Zara explained. It's a complex procedure that will allow you and the Dracarians to create a connection. It's not just physical, Dylan, it's emotional, psychological. We'll need to work together for this to succeed. Dylan's head spun with the new information. The whole thing sounded so bizarre. How could something like this even work? How could he form a bond with someone or something from another world? I'm not sure I can do this, Dylan admitted, his voice quieter now. How do you even begin something like that? How do I even trust you? Zora's eyes softened and she gave his hand a gentle squeeze. I know it's a lot, but you won't be alone in this. I'll guide you every step of the way. You can trust me, Dylan. I wouldn't ask you to do this if it wasn't the only way for us to survive. Dylan wanted to believe her. He wanted to believe that this was all for a greater purpose, but doubt still lingered in the back of his mind. How could he possibly form a connection with someone like Zara, someone from another world with a completely different culture and way of life? Before he could voice any more concerns, Zara stood up from the table and offered him a warm smile. Let's get some rest tonight. You'll need all the energy you can get for tomorrow. We have a lot of work ahead of us. Dylan followed her, standing up slowly. He wasn't sure what was ahead of him, but he knew one thing: his life would never be the same. He had already made the choice to help Zara and her people, but now he was about to experience things he had never even dreamed of. His mind was full of questions, and he didn't know if he would find the answers. But as he followed Zara out of the restaurant, one thought dominated his mind. He had no idea what he was getting into. The next day, Zara led Dylan to a sleek, futuristic building. It looked nothing like anything Dan had ever seen before. The architecture was smooth, streamlined, and sleek, with glowing lights and large glass windows. As they entered the building, the air felt cooler and the walls seemed to hum with an almost otherworldly energy. This is the Dracarian facility, Zord explained. This is where we conduct all the procedures. It's as safe as it can be, but I need you to understand that this is still a risk. Dylan nodded, trying to steady his breathing. The reality of what he was about to do began to hit him harder. The idea of being part of something so important, so far-reaching, was overwhelming, But he had made his choice. The room was quiet except for the soft hum of the machines. Dylan stood in the center feeling more anxious than ever. The sterile walls, the bright lights, and the strange instruments surrounding him only made the situation feel more surreal. Zara stood by his side, her presence a strange comfort in the midst of all the uncertainty. She had guided him this far, and now she was about to lead him through the most important moment of his life. Are you sure about this? Dylan asked, his voice barely above a whisper. His hands were sweating, his mind swirling with thoughts of what might happen next. The tests from earlier had shown that his body was ready for the procedure, but he still couldn't shake the feeling that something this big couldn't possibly be so simple. Zara turned to him, her eyes filled with calm reassurance. I know it's difficult, but this is the only way forward, Dylan. It's the only way. My people will survive. I will be here with you every step of the way. Dylan nodded, but deep inside he felt the weight of what was about to happen. This wasn't just about him anymore, it was about the future of an entire species. His choices, his actions would determine whether the Dracarens could continue to exist. The technician in the room, one of Zora's people, approached with a small device in his hand. The device looked like a sleek silver bracelet, but there were intricate markings on it that Dylan didn't recognize. It was another reminder that nothing about this process was familiar. Zara stepped forward and placed a hand on Dylan's arm. This device will allow the bonding process to begin. It will synchronize with your body and mine. Don't be afraid, Dylan. It won't hurt, but it will be intense. You might feel different afterward. It's part of the process. Dylan took a deep breath, trying to steady his nerves. Intense, he repeated. That was an understatement. He had no idea what to expect, and part of him was scared that he might not be able to handle it, but the other part of him, the part that had made the choice to help Zara and her people, was ready. The technician placed the bracelet around Dylan's wrist. It was cold to the touch, and he felt a faint tingling sensation spread up his arm. As it activated, the device hummed softly, and a small panel on its side lit up. It was like something out of a sci-fi movie, and Dylan couldn't help but wonder if this was the moment that would change everything. Zara stood close to him, her eyes locked on his. Are you ready? She asked, her voice steady but gentle. I guess so, Dylan replied, his voice shaky. He looked at her, seeing the sincerity in her gaze. She was just as much a part of this as he was, and that thought gave him some comfort. She wasn't just asking him to help her, she was asking him to help them both. The technician nodded, stepping back, initiating the process. Now, he said in a calm, neutral voice. He pressed a button on the panel, and the bracelet on Dylan's wrist glowed brighter. The air in the room seemed to change, electric charged, as though something powerful was building. Dylan felt a warmth spread from his wrist, traveling up his arm and then to his chest. His heartbeat quickened as a strange sensation swept through his entire body. It wasn't painful, but it was overwhelming. It felt as though his very essence was being pulled in multiple directions at once. His breath hitched, and he looked to Zara, but her expression remained calm, as if she had been through this many times before. The warmth intensified, and suddenly Dylan felt a deep, unexpected connection to Zora. It was more than just a physical sensation. It was as though he could feel her thoughts, her emotions, as if they were intertwined on some deep primal level. It was overwhelming, but not in a bad way. There was a sense of unity, a deep bond that he had never experienced before. Zara's voice broke through his thoughts, soft and soothing. It's working. You're doing great, Dylan. Just breathe. Let the connection form. Dylan tried to focus on his breathing, but it was difficult with so many sensations swirling inside him. His body felt alive, every nerve tingling, as though he had just awoken from a long sleep, and yet at the same time he felt more connected to the universe than he had ever felt before. The bond between him and Zara wasn't just physical, it was spiritual, mental, emotional. He could feel her hopes, her fears, and even the weight of responsibility she carried for her people. The room felt different now, quieter. Somehow Dylan stood there still, trying to process everything that had just happened. His body felt strange, like it wasn't entirely his own anymore. There was an unfamiliar weight in his chest, And his mind buzzed with a constant hum, as if his senses were heightened to the point of overload. The bond, the connection with Zara was real, and it was something he had never expected to feel. Zora was standing beside him, watching him closely. Her expression was soft, almost protective. She had been calm throughout the entire process, but Dylan could see the exhaustion in her eyes. She had given him everything, just as he had agreed to help her people. "How do you feel?" Zara asked, her voice gentle but filled with concern. Dylan swallowed hard, trying to shake off the lingering effects of the process. His mind was still reeling, and he wasn't sure if he could explain what he was feeling. "I don't know," he admitted. "I feel different. It's like I'm not alone in my head anymore, like you're always there even when you're not." Zora nodded slowly, understanding the complexity of what he was going through. "The bond isn't just about us sharing feelings or thoughts. It's a part of you now. You're connected to me and through me to the Dracarians. It will take some time for you to adjust." Dylan's heart pounded in his chest as he tried to grasp the reality of the situation. "So this is it. This is how we are going to save your people." Zara's gaze softened. "Yes, this bond is the first step. It will allow us to begin the process of creating new life, something we've struggled with for years, but there's more to it than just the bond itself. You and I will need to stay connected. Our relationship, whatever it becomes, is crucial to the survival of the Dracarians." Dylan wasn't sure what to say. The idea of having a relationship with Zora, of being linked so deeply with someone from another world, was overwhelming, but he also understood that without this bond her people would not survive, and in a way that responsibility weighed heavily on his shoulders. "Do you really think this will work?" Dylan asked quietly. "I mean, how can we be sure that something like this will save your people?" Zora's eyes sparkled with a glimmer of hope. "We don't have all the answers till Lynn, but this is our best chance. The Dracarians have never had a connection like this with humans before. You're the key to saving us, and we believe in you." Dylan's thoughts were racing. This was so much more than he had bargained for. He had thought he was just helping Zara, maybe making her life a little easier, but now he was part of something far bigger, something that would have lasting consequences, not just for him, but for an entire species. He was connected to Zara in ways he couldn't yet fully understand, and the weight of it was heavy. Suddenly a new sensation washed over him, a feeling of deep warmth and comfort. It wasn't physical, but it felt like a part of him had been unlocked. Dylan closed his eyes for a moment, trying to process the feeling. When he opened them again, Zora was standing right in front of him, her hand gently touching his arm. "You're not alone in this, Dylan," she said softly. "This bond, it's not just about saving the Darans, it's about us too. We are connected now, and no matter what happens, we'll face it together." Dylan felt the truth of her words settle in his heart. He wasn't alone anymore. There was a part of him that had always been solitary, always distant, but now there was someone who understood him on a level no one else ever had. Zora wasn't just an alien from another planet. She was someone who shared his thoughts, his fears, and his dreams. For the first time, Dylan felt a spark of something more than just responsibility. He felt the beginnings of trust, of connection. He wasn't just helping Zara anymore. He was becoming a part of her world, and she was becoming a part of his. "I don't know what comes next," Dylan said, his voice uncertain but filled with quiet determination, "but I'm ready. I'll do whatever it takes to help you and your people." Zara smiled, her eyes shining with gratitude. "Thank you, Dylan. I can't tell you how much this means to me." For a moment the room was silent, the only sound being the soft hum of the machinery around them. Dylan couldn't help but wonder what would come next. He had made the choice to help Zara, and now he had to follow through, but as he stood there, his hand still resting in hers, he felt a strange sense of peace despite the chaos that lay ahead. He knew one thing for sure: he wasn't alone anymore. Dylan stood at the window looking out at the strange cityscape. Below, the tall buildings were sleek, their surfaces gleaming with a soft blue light, and the sky above was a deep shade of violet dotted with distant stars. It was a sight unlike anything he had ever seen before. This was Zora's world. He had thought that by agreeing to help her and her people he would be able to make a difference, but now the weight of his decision felt heavier than ever. His mind buzzed with thoughts of what the future would hold. The bond he shared with Zora was growing stronger, but with each passing day he felt the responsibility settling deeper into his chest. He wasn't just connected to her now, he was connected to everything that mattered to her, the Dracarians, their history, their future. It was all a part of him too. Zora entered the room quietly, her footsteps light against the polished floor. Dylan turned to face her, his expression distant, as his thoughts swirled around him. Is everything okay? She asked, her voice soft, filled with concern. Dylan took a deep breath and ran a hand through his hair. I don't know, it's just a lot to take in. I thought I understood what I was getting into, but the reality of it is overwhelming. Zara nodded, stepping closer to him. I know it's hard, this bond. Everything we are doing, it's new to both of us, but you're not alone in this. We'll face it together. Dylan met her eyes, and for the first time he saw the full weight of the situation in her gaze. She was just as uncertain as he was, and yet she had stayed calm through it all, guiding him when he needed it most. I didn't realize how deep this connection would go, Dylan admitted, his voice quiet. It's like I'm not just helping you, I'm part of your people now, and I don't know if I'm ready for that responsibility. Zora smiled gently. You are, Dylan, you're already more a part of us than you know. The bond between us isn't just about survival, it's about understanding. The more you embrace it, the more you'll realize that we are connected in ways that go beyond what we can explain. Dylan wanted to believe her, but a small part of him still felt lost. How could he possibly understand an alien culture that was so different from his own? How could he live up to the trust they had placed in him? His mind raced with questions, but he couldn't find any answers before he could speak. Again there was a soft chime from the door, and a tall figure stepped inside. It was one of Zora's fellow Dracarans, a man who looked older than most of the others Dylan had met. His skin was a deep shade of silver and his eyes glowed faintly with an inner light. Zara, the man said, his voice deep and commanding, we need to talk. Zora's expression changed, a look of concern crossing her face. What's wrong, lawyer? The man stepped forward, his gaze briefly flickering to Dylan before returning to Zara. There have been developments. Forces we didn't anticipate are beginning to stir. I thought you should know. Dylan felt a knot form in his stomach. He didn't know what was going on, but the tension in the room was palpable. Zara turned to him, her eyes filled with a mix of emotions. What's happening? She asked, her voice firm. Lyra glanced around the room before speaking. We've detected signs of resistance. There are factions within the Dracaran leadership who do not agree with what we are doing. They do not believe in the bond, and they are already planning to stop it. Dylan's heart sank. He had expected challenges along the way, but this was something else entirely. There were people in Zora's own world who didn't support their plan, people who wanted to stop them. What are they going to do? Dylan asked, his voice tight with fear. Zara's jaw clenched. They will do whatever it takes to stop us. The bond between us and humans is controversial. Some believe it is too dangerous. They fear the unknown and they don't trust it. Lyra's expression darkened. They have already begun to mobilize. They are sending envoys to the other planets, trying to gather support. If we don't act quickly, this could spiral out of control. Dylan felt a chill run down his spine. He had thought that the hardest part was over, that the bonding process would be the final hurdle, but now it seemed like they were just beginning to face the true challenges. People within Zora's own world were willing to sabotage everything they had worked for. This is exactly what we feared, Zora said, her voice firm, but we will not let them stop us. The bond is our only hope. Dylan looked at Zora, his heart filled with uncertainty. What can we do? How do we stop them? The next few days passed in a blur. Dawn and Zara worked side by side, meeting with leaders, explaining the bond, and trying to build support. Every conversation was important. Every word they spoke was a chance to save the Dracarian people. Some Dracarians Listened with open hearts, they saw the connection between Dylan and Zara, and understood its power. They believed that new life, new hope, could come from this bond, but others remained cold and stubborn. Fear made them turn away. Fear made them dangerous. One evening, after a long meeting, Dylan sat on the balcony outside Zora's home. The cool night air felt good against his skin. Above him the stars looked different, but beautiful. He thought of his home on Earth, wondering if he would ever see it again. Zara joined him, sitting down quietly beside him. For a few moments neither of them spoke. They just listened to the soft hum of the city and the gentle winds that carried scents of strange flowers. "We're making progress," Zara said finally, her voice tired but hopeful. Dylan nodded. "But it's not enough, is it?" Zara sighed. "No, not yet. There are still many who would rather see the old ways die than accept change." Dylan looked at her, seeing the worry she tried to hide. She was strong, but even she had her limits. He reached out and took her hand, feeling the warmth of her skin against his. "We are not giving up," he said firmly. "We'll find a way." Before Zora could answer, a loud crash shook the ground beneath them. They jumped to their